Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some very important news out of the state of Iowa, where the Republican Attorney General and longtime speculated candidate for governor in 2026, Brenna Bird, is officially running for re-election and not running for Iowa governor in 2026. The article from CBS 2 Iowa talks about Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird not running for governor in 2026. Bird had been considering a run for the state's highest position and even hinted at it in a social media video earlier this year. She said, quote, "I was born and raised on a farm, and one thing I know is that you don't stop halfway through a job," Bird told the Des Moines Register. "We have accomplished big victories, stopping scammers, fighting for victims, standing up for law enforcement, and defending our constitutional rights, but there is still more work to do." Republicans who are officially running for governor so far in 2026, Congressman Randy Feenstra, Iowa State Rep. Eddie Andrews, and former state lawmaker Brad Sherman. Democrats running include Iowa Auditor Rob Sand, Paul Dahl, Julie Stauch, and Sandra Wilson. I'll be getting more on the candidates in just a moment, but first, I want to show you what the statement Bird released was on her official Twitter page. Brenna Bird said, and I quote, "I have been overwhelmed by the number of Iowans who have encouraged me to run for governor. I want you to know there is no way for me to adequately express my appreciation for your kind words and the faith you expressed in me. In 2022, we defeated the longest-serving Attorney General in U.S. history. I was born and raised on a farm, and one thing I know is that you don't stop halfway through a job. We have accomplished big victories, stopping scammers, fighting for victims, standing up for law enforcement, and defending our constitutional rights, but there is still more work to do. I know how important it is that we support our law enforcement heroes, convict criminals, and advocate for victims. As Attorney General, I am responsible for upholding our Constitution and laws, a responsibility I take seriously. As a prosecutor, I know how important it is to uphold the rule of law. As a mom, I want to protect our children and keep them safe. I'm absolutely determined to do justice and hold this office to prevent it from being occupied by a radical progressive Democrat who would undo all what we've accomplished. That is why I've decided to run for re-election for Attorney General in 2026. Between now and next November, I will run a fierce re-election campaign, and I will win. I will also enthusiastically support our Republican nominee for governor and the entire Republican ticket here in Iowa. Our party will be unified. I remain grateful for the opportunity to serve Iowans as their Attorney General, and I look forward to earning their support once again." That's the official statement that Bird put out. Now, talking about this race overall, this election, which will be happening a part of the midterms on November 3rd, 2026, will be electing a new governor of Iowa. On April 11th, 2025, the incumbent Republican Governor Kim Reynolds, who was eligible to run for a third consecutive term, as Iowa does not have governor term limits, decided she would not be seeking a third term. So now this race is wide open. 3 Republicans are currently in the race, though it's worth noting from the last time I did a video about Iowa's governor's race, several Republicans have ruled out runs and have decided to either run for re-election to their respective offices or just decline to run outright or run for other positions. However, 3 Republicans are running: Eddie Andrews, a state representative from the 43rd District in Iowa, Randy Feenstra, U.S. representative from Iowa's 4th District, and Brad Sherman, a former state representative from the 91st. For a while, I talked about this race and saying that I assumed Brenna Bird would get in the race, and if she did, I think she would start out as the favorite. Now that Bird is not running, I would say so far of these 3 candidates, Randy Feenstra, the U.S. representative, has the highest name recognition of the 3 Republicans and the highest office of Iowa's 4th District, so he would likely start out as the early favorite to win this primary. A state senator, Mike Bousselot, has also formed an exploratory committee to run. State Representative Bobby Kaufman and Amy Sinclair, president of the Iowa Senate, have both expressed interest in running for this race. Right now, I do think that Feenstra is the most likely Republican to be the nominee, but again, this is still very early on in the race. We're going to have to wait and see how it all develops going forward. On the Democratic side, 4 Democrats are running, but the one that a lot of people nationally and a lot of Democrats in Iowa are talking about is Rob Sand, Iowa's Auditor of State. He is the only Democratic elected statewide right now for Iowa for the Democrats, and he is one of the best Democratic recruits that you could possibly get for Iowa in 2026. He is running in this race, and it gives the Democrats a rare opportunity at making this governor's race very competitive. Sand also already has the endorsement of neighboring Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota and the End Citizens United PAC, which obviously seeks to overturn Citizens United in the Federal Election Commission case the Supreme Court decided back, I believe, in 2010. This race right now, actually for Iowa, shows a lot of competitiveness. Cook Politico has it as lean Republican. Inside Elections has it as a battleground. Sabado Crystal Ball has it likely. Race to the White House has it as toss-up. So for these prediction websites, all very highly respected and reputable, have differing opinions on this race. And to me, that says this race could be very competitive. Now, if you don't spend as much time, for instance, as maybe I or some other election YouTubers do on Iowa, you may be thinking, well, Iowa's not really competitive. It's a pretty reliable Republican state now. 2024, Donald Trump won the state by 13.2%. Why could this race be competitive? Well, let's go back a little bit. In 2020, Donald Trump won the state by 8.2%. 2016, it voted for Trump by 9.4%. All three of those were likely Republican wins. 2012 was the last time it went Democrat when Obama won it by 5.8. At the Senate level, it's also been relatively reliable Republican. Chuck Grassley won it by 12.2% in 2022. In 2020, Joni Ernst, who is up for re-election again in 2026, won it by 6.5. So again, this seems to be much more of a likely Republican seat. The governor level has been a little bit more interesting. 2022, which was a more Republican-favored midterm year, it didn't end up being that way exactly, but it was supposed to be a very good night for the Republicans, where in some cases it was. Kim Reynolds won re-election by 18.5%, a safe Republican victory. So from that standpoint alone, it shouldn't be competitive. However, recent approval numbers show that Kim Reynolds' approval ratings right now are not very high, and that could have contributed to why she's not running for re-election for governor of Iowa. And it should be worth noting, when she first got elected back in 2018, Reynolds only won by 2.7% in this race against her Democratic opponent. 2018, coincidentally, was also the last time there was a midterm election up when President Trump was president. And when President Trump's president, that means the Democrats, who are the off-year party, historically do well in the midterms. That's what 2026 is setting up to be. Historically, the Democrats should be the ones for a good night in 2026, not the Republicans. This election showed Kim Reynolds only getting 667,275 votes to the Democrats' 630,986. So a very competitive election when everything was said and done. And seeing as the election environment should be most similar to this one, rather than 2022, it's possible this race becomes very competitive in 2026 for the Democrats. My most recent election prediction for the governor's races, which just came out a few days ago, I actually have this race starting out as lean Republican. It is worth noting the Republicans don't have who I view the best candidate in Brenna Bird at the top of the ticket anymore, and I do weigh into possibility of Rob Sand being a very strong Democratic candidate for the general election. And I think Republicans that don't acknowledge that Rob Sand is a unique Democratic candidate that could make this race very close, maybe doing so at their own peril. So with those factored in, and Iowa's election history of being more of a likely Republican state, but with the potential to be competitive in the right election environment, I currently have it going to the Republicans in the lean margin, which would be approximately 1 to 5% margin of victory. I think it'd be more likely to be around the 4.5% range than the 1-point range, but I do think that Iowa could be more competitive this time around, and the governor's race with Rob Sand could get very interesting. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, though. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.